Hello and welcome once again to the Blueprints. This is Canada's Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, with new content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this program. And tell your friends, too, to download it on platforms like CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. You name it, it is out there. On today's show, we are talking about crime and its impact on the rise on our communities. For this and much more, we bring on Chris Lewis, the Member of Parliament, the one and only.
Good to
from
see you,
Essex, Ontario. Thank you very much for coming.
Good to see you, Jamie. Thanks a million for having me. Really appreciate it. It's such an important topic, something that certainly hits a border city, such as Windsor. Essex I represent, but Windsor. There's so much to uncover today, to unpackage today about crime, but it's important to have the discussion because we know that folks from coast to coast to coast are feeling it in their own backyards. You hear the stories. I'm sure you hear about it in Haliburton, and it's important to have the discussion. So thanks for having me.
I think, and just before we started rolling, you informed me that you haven't been on the show since 2019, so I apologize for that. We've missed you. Good to have you back.
Thanks a lot.
So we now have a crime czar, apparently, a crime czar. The Liberals have appointed that person. Let's just go over the numbers here. Violent crime since 2015, so about 10 years, up 50%. Hate crimes, up 250%. Human trafficking, 84%. Partner violence, 19% it's up. Firearm-related crime, up 116%, which is weird because the Liberals are confiscating legally owned firearms from farmers, hunters, and sport shooters. Here's another one. Extortion, 357% increase in the last 10 years. Auto theft, up 46%. Gang-related homicide, up 78%. This just keeps on going. It's unreal, but the crime czar doesn't think it's a simple fix. Let's cue up cut one and play cut one.
And I know that a lot of the country is talking about bail reforms as the end-all fix-all, but ultimately, laws and writing laws do not just fix a problem with the flip of a switch.
Well, I think they do. So Bill C-75, you know, the piece of Liberal legislation that's made bail easier for these offenders, and also C-5, which reduced the sentences that judges are able to give out to those convicted, finally convicted. So if you manage to potentially commit a crime, get arrested, you know, on trial, you're convicted, and your sentence is a lot less. But at the meantime, because of C-75 and C-5, these horrible pieces of legislation, oftentimes you are spending your time waiting trial at home or out on bail or, you know, not behind bars where you should be. And we're not talking about, let's be clear, we're not talking about some 18-year-old who made a mistake. We're talking about those that continue to create havoc in our communities over and over again. Because my community just had in a very small area up in Haliburton County, you know, very quiet community, right? You know, people just go about their lives, just want to be left alone. But they're feeling unsafe because of a small number of people keep committing more and more crime. It's the same crime over and over again. People are feeling unsafe, and they're sick and tired of it because when I listed those numbers, it not only means crime is up, but the number of victims are up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jamie. And it doesn't really matter where you go. It doesn't really matter where you go because we continue to hear the story repeated over and over and over. But I think before I forget, I do want to thank the incredibly brave men and women that serve us, that protect us. Not only up here in Ottawa, but in all of our regions, those that put on the uniform, those that wear the badges, that put their life on the line each and every single day, they really need to have the kudos. It's not their fault, by the way, Jamie, that crime is up. It's certainly not their fault. It's the failed Liberal policies, to your point. And, you know, we could dive into a million different things, but I like to tell real life stories. And I will tell you that one person from my staff just 2 weeks ago got her car broken into in her own driveway, and nothing was taken. I will tell you a story from this morning. So this morning, a woman told me a story. And the story was she lives in the basement, probably because she can't afford a home, right, of another person. And upstairs they had a celebration for a mother and a father that were going to be having a baby here. I think she was like 7 months pregnant, 7 or 8 months pregnant. And sometime through the night, somebody broke into their garage and stole nothing. But then they broke into the house through the patio, and they took the alcohol and they took the food, left the iPads, left the computers. What that tells me is people are wildly desperate because the Liberals for the last 10 years have completely driven this country, the opportunity in this country, right to the basement. And that's how desperate people are. But at the same time, when you enable and allow these folks to get a free pass and not spend the time behind bars for rehabilitation, we have a major, major problem.
Yes, because if you don't have consequences, that's a problem. But also think of the police officer who does their job. And many of these cases takes months, years of their time. They're putting their lives, they're dedicating themselves to something to have the end result, an arrest. In this case, one of the largest drug busts in Peel Region history. I believe it was a whole whack of cocaine. I forget the exact amount. But they were arrested in the morning. And was it 7 out of the 9 were out on bail in the afternoon?
Released in the
So
afternoon.
nine arrested, 7 were out on bail. Like, how does a police officer fail? How does, there was a case in Sarnia where an individual was in court and on the way out of court was stealing a car in the courthouse parking lot. Like, this is a weird dynamic that we've got ourselves into because there doesn't seem to be any consequences for those that keep offending and reoffending. And people don't feel safe. People are really concerned. And really, people have done nothing wrong, right? And our leader talks about it often. Canada had a deal, right? Work hard, play by the rules. You can afford, a good house with a job that has a powerful paycheck that allows you to raise a family if you so choose and retire in dignity. But that's being taken from people.
Yeah.
It's really happening.
I understand what you mean by that. And, so we see since 2014, violent crime is up by 55%. This is violent crime. This isn't just little mischievous, little pickpocketing kind of things. I always try to go to the positive. I try to be the eternal optimist, not the pessimist. But I'm also a realist, Jamie. And so when I look at the busiest international border crossing in North America, it's the Ambassador Bridge, soon to be the new Gordie Howe International Bridge, very soon, I think even this fall. We're really fortunate because now we have MP Harb Gill for Windsor West, and he has 7 years experience with the Toronto Police Department and 22 years with the Windsor Police Department. He's going to bring something really unique to our team, messages to our leader, to help with what actually needs to be done. But let's not forget, our leader was the one. He was the one that said, if you want to stop auto crime, if you want to stop guns, illegal guns, and we listened to our friend, President Trump, talk about the 1% of fentanyl in the United States. But no discussion ever is about the illegal handguns that come from the United States into Canada. What did our leaders say? Let's not take away and invest in trying to take legal, law-abiding firearms from firearm owners. Don't put your money there. Put it into X-ray machines at our busiest borders and find those. And that's exactly what I know that you would agree with me on that. That's where the money needs to be spent. It doesn't need to be spent on Mr. and Mrs. Smith's or Uncle Joe's shotgun that he wants to go shoot a duck every once or twice. It's the soft on crime liberals that have completely, for 10 years, for a decade now, allowed people to walk free. And if there's no ramifications, if there's not something more than a wrist slap and let you out of prison, then why would people stop the bad behavior? And it's just wrong. It's not the way I grew up. It's not the way that my parents taught me, and it's not the way that the majority of Canadians act, and we need to make sure that we put the proper backstops in place to ensure that all Canadians that are abiding by the law are safe.
I
and
also
secure.
think of the young people, right? Especially if you were going into high school, say around the pandemic, in the middle of high school, you know, you had lockdown, so you missed some pretty important milestones in your life if you're going to high school, even in college, university, or trade school, or whatever at the other end. So you went into the lockdowns. Your life, you know, life kind of as you know it changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then you immediately come out and you're into inflation and you're into a housing crisis. And all of a sudden the job market's a lot shakier than it was just a little while ago. And there's a lot of uncertainty. Not only that, the town or the city that you once grew up in has changed as well. People are locking their doors where they might not have before.
Yeah.
There are some pretty serious changes. So the world from a young person's view, I think, is a lot different than it was when we were growing up. And I think that's why we noticed a bit of a shift in the last election as well. More and more young people were looking to our party because
You're right.
what we were talking about was, yeah, you should be able to afford a home in a safe community with a powerful paycheck. And people were relating to that because I think there was some acknowledgement that that Canadian dream, because of 10 years of Liberal rule, is a lot harder to achieve now.
And I tell you, Jamie, I told you in the beginning, at the onset of this, I love to tell personal stories, and I'm going to tell a personal story. I was having lunch with a young woman. When I say young woman, 22, 23 years old, about 2.5 weeks ago. And she has a boyfriend of about 5 years, and they both work their behinds off. They work incredibly, incredibly hard. And she looked at me and said, "We've given up. We'll never be able to afford a house." If that's the state of where our society is at, it's no wonder that crime is up so high. And it's such a sad state to be in that it breaks my heart to death. And of course, we want to do everything we can to help them. But with the state of our young adults, if there's no path to success, why get up in the world? Why get up in the morning with a bounce in your step and a smile on your face to go do the right thing? Therefore, people turn to the wrong thing, and that's we got to fix the problem at the very root of the problem. And the root of the problem is don't let people out of jail that committed violent crimes. And if I could just be so bold, I do also want to talk about human trafficking.
Sure.
Because
that's up as well.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
84% in the last 10 years.
Yeah, so 84% human trafficking. So I'm not proud of this stat, but the 401 corridor between Windsor and Quebec is a huge corridor for human trafficking. And you know, as I was coming over today, I read a CBC news article, the Hotel Association of Canada. And it's on the ticker on the bottom. And it said that they now are doing training for the folks that work for the hotels to find out, to recognize the human trafficking victims.
Let's throw up that graphic of
Yeah,
the
I don't know if
major
you've got it or
bust
not.
here.
Like, look at
85
this.
arrests maybe. So
Look at this.
it was mentioned off air. So the police were able to nab 1,100 men in Ontario that decided to inquire about relations with young people, but how many more got away? That's the more frightening part of it all.
But what about the victims?
Yep.
Right? What about those young victims that now have to suffer the very rest of their life? And that's why, to your point in the very beginning, the Liberals are quite frankly out of touch. Mm-hmm. They don't understand. They don't feel the pain that the victims feel. I think I have to believe they just think the problem's going to go away, Jamie, and the problem is only going to get worse.
Well, Iqra Khalid, the Liberal minister there,
Sure.
the crime czar apparently, doesn't feel like laws are going to do it. But what she doesn't realize is the laws that were passed enabled this to happen. The laws that were passed got us to the point we are now,
That's why we are where we
where
are.
more and more Canadians are feeling less safe. and feel kind of ripped off from that Canadian dream and that kind of Canadian agreement that you once had, that the government would do everything it could to keep its population safe, and is sadly, it doesn't give me any pride to say this, it's failing that. The government is failing its citizens. And unfortunately, the last 10 years during the last election campaign weren't really analyzed at all. The media kind of forgot about the last 10 years, switched to, we've got to stand up to Donald Trump, which I agree we do. We, as we said many times in the show, our plan was to make Canada more powerful so that we are able to negotiate from a position of strength rather than weakness by growing our economy. The Liberals want to manage it through government grants and government ideology. Yeah. And that really doesn't help either. That kind of thing has been tried, and it fails every single time. So Canadians did have that choice. Unfortunately, I think the Liberals put up a pretty good distraction, because we got to the point because of the last 10 years, not 1 or 2 months of Donald Trump in office.
Can you imagine if we were actually building the pipelines, if we were actually investing into our LNG, if we were actually investing into the Ring of Fire, our critical minerals for our battery plants? Can you imagine how many strong, paying, skilled labor jobs there would be there that would actually take violent offenders off the street? Why? Because they have a purpose in life. Mm-hmm. They can make a really good paycheck. They can afford a home. Oh my goodness, I could actually afford a home? Yes. So invest back in Canada. Use our own natural resources. We have so many. Oh, and by the way, they don't have to all stay in Canada. Let's ship them overseas. Let's do exactly what Justin Trudeau didn't do, which was ship LNG to Japan, to Germany, mm-hmm. the ones that were begging for our LNG. And now who is getting all the great results, benefits from it?
Well, Qatar got a bit.
Yeah. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, too.
They're eating our lunch.
Yes, absolutely. There's no question about that. But building the economy is kind of at the bottom, too, right? We have to have that strong economy. And, of course, the Liberals have spent the last 10 years debauching the economy, mm-hmm. stopping investment. Capital has left Canada in droves, because this is not an environment that is actually encouraging people to take a risk, to grab that investment and start to scale up or start anything. And it's really unfortunate, because we used to be known as an area that did all of that before the Liberals got going on their mission. And unfortunately, it's really sad, because I think we do have a lot more potential. And hopefully there'll be change in government again whenever that next election happens, because right now it's been elbows down with this Prime Minister. Yeah,
I completely agree with you. And I guess, so I come from the business background, and I love meeting new businesses. I love entrepreneurs. I just find them fascinating. And again, I'm the eternal optimist, not a pessimist, but I say to them all the time, I don't know who would want to invest in this country right now with all the red tape, with all the regulations, with all the high taxes, with all the uncertainty. When somebody starts a new business, you got to celebrate it, because that is no small venture mm-hmm. to do right now. But we, and I know our leader is on board with this, I'm sure he would be, we want to enhance, we want to help, we want to cut the red tape. We want to ensure that businesses can go, because we can talk jobs all day long, Jamie. We can talk jobs until we're blue in the face, pardon the pun. But there won't be any jobs, you don't have any business. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so vital, to ensure that they're good to go. And all of that goes back down to crime, which is what we're talking about today. Is if you give people an option, you give people a possibility, there will be success. There will be success.
Yeah, nobody invests in a business that where public safety isn't number one, right? If your street's full of crime, or getting broken into, or right. people can't get in your front door because people are chasing them away or whatever, no one's going to invest in a business. That's the other part. So it's all part and parcel. We're pretty much out of time.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
As you know, the guests always get it does, but the guests get the last word. So the floor is yours.
Well, thanks a lot. So number one, thank you again for having me on here today. Great discussion. And I don't think it's just unique to Ontario, our discussion today. I know that it's
Canada-wide.
It's Canada-wide. So we kind of picked on Ontario a little bit, but But it means the world that you would allow me to at least have my voice on your podcast. By the way, you're doing a great job with this. Keep up the great work. And again, I'm just going to go back one more time and just give a huge kudos and huge thank you to the men and women that protect us. That's a 24-hour job. I was a firefighter for 7.5 years. So I didn't have bullets flying over my head, but I certainly had fire flying over my head. But I don't want to forget that just because things are ugly and maybe a little upside down today, it's not because of the brave men and women. And without them, none of us are safe. So,
Nope.
Jamie, keep up the
That's
great work, and I really appreciate it, buddy.
No worries, Chris, and thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. And
Take
you're
care,
right.
buddy.
Pretty demoralizing when they're doing everything they can to keep us safe, and our politicians are letting us down. So
10-4.
thank you very much. Chris Lewis, thank you very much for your time, member of
betcha,
Parliament for Essex. Thank you for yours. Don't forget, new content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this program. Until next week, remember, low taxes, less government, more freedom. That's the blueprint.
Here, here.